Hi, my name is Sven. I'm the CEO at Webiny, and I want to give you a short overview of Webiny, the open source framework for building serverless applications. Before we dive into Webiny, we can't really discuss the benefits Webiny brings unless we talk about serverless first. Serverless is the next step in the evolution of infrastructure, and it brings a lot of new things on how we build applications and manage them as well. So to start with serverless, there's no servers to manage. Servers are still there, but they're abstracted away. We only care about code, and we let the cloud provider worry about the servers, the scalability, the networking, the security, the patches, maintenance, and many of these other aspects. Also, how we consume the service reflects on how we pay for it. With serverless, especially serverless functions, we pay per what we used, unlike booking an hour of an EC2 instance and then using it for 5 minutes, but we still have to pay for the hour. With serverless, we never pay for what we didn't use. Also, because there's no servers, all that DevOps time can be actually spent into building the product faster and having faster cycles of product iterations. And we don't have to worry about scalability anymore, about load balancers and scaling in and out, right? That is all handled for us by the cloud provider. And because of all these benefits that serverless brings, many enterprises are actually adopting serverless and seeing big cost savings. Cost savings actually happen on two fronts. First, you save more money by utilizing your infrastructure 100% because you'd never pay for stuff you didn't use with serverless. But also, because there's no servers to manage, you don't need as many people managing your infrastructure. So the cost savings are really significant when it comes to serverless. But if we needed to summarize what serverless is, serverless allows us to spend less time worrying about infrastructure and how we operate that infrastructure. And it allows us to spend more time on solving actual business problems. But serverless comes with many challenges, actually. There was a survey done with 1,500 organizations on why they haven't adopted serverless, and if they did, what are their challenges, and as well as how were they building their serverless applications. When we talk about why organizations haven't adopted serverless, main reason is actually security. But if you look at the second point, fear of the unknown, well, you can't secure something you don't understand, right? If you knew how something worked, then you would be able to secure it in the proper way. But because of the lack of experience most of engineers today have with serverless, they also don't understand it to a degree that they can build proper security measures around them. And it's a big problem for organizations. But even after organizations have adopted serverless, they have different types of problems, like educating current staff. What we see is that it's usually a small pocket of engineers within a larger organization that adopt serverless, and then suddenly everybody else wants to jump on that ship. But they don't have the expertise, and this small team, how will they scale out the knowledge they have? It's a big challenge. Also, serverless services are super sticky, so that can cause different types of problems for organizations, especially if they want to have multi-cloud strategy, move away from one cloud provider to another at a later point. And also because of the architectures that we use when building serverless services, they're rather hard to test and debug. But when we look at how organizations are actually building serverless solutions, well, the number one approach is custom tooling, essentially reinventing the wheel in a way. But also this is problematic because first you have to invest quite a lot of time at the very beginning in building all those tools. So you eat up a significant portion of the actual money that serverless is going to save. And then afterwards, you have to maintain all those tools, which is another cost in itself. And the benefits in terms of cost savings that serverless bring, you can pretty much lose them here. And that's kind of where Webiny comes in, right? So our mission at Webiny is to enable both organizations as well as individual developers to adopt serverless in the easiest possible way. And Webiny is built pretty much with a lot of the standard tools developers use today. And from cloud providers today, we run on AWS, but we do have plans in supporting Google and Azure at the later stage. And like, where does Webiny sit in your application stack? So if you imagine this being your application stack, at the bottom of your stack, you have your infrastructure providers, your clouds. Then on top of it, you have infrastructure monitoring and alerting, as well as orchestration tools like Blumigo and Serverless Framework and similar. But these two go in hand, like they are still on the infrastructure layer. But these two layers here, they are all about the application. And that's where Webiny sits. Webiny sits between your business logic and infrastructure, providing you with layers like API, security, routing, server-side rendering, many other bits. And then on top of Webiny, you actually build your code, but Webiny saves you with all the serverless problems, pitfalls, and challenges. And also on top of, like, in this pillar here, we have ready-made apps that we've built that you can use out of the box today that run on top of Webiny as well. So if we look at Webiny as a project, it is fully free and open source. It's licensed in MIT. Our source code is live on GitHub, and we welcome any community members to use it and contribute back as well. And as I mentioned, our mission is to empower both developers and organizations to create serverless applications. But how we do that is actually in a couple of parts. First, we have our framework. Then we have an admin UI. And then we have ready-made applications. And finally, we have a documentation. Now we're going to jump into a bit more detail in each of these. So when we talk about the framework, there's a couple of parts to it. First, we have a command line interface, which you use to both bootstrap your projects, create projects, as well as deploy the projects. So when you're dealing with Webiny, you don't need to log into your AWS account and connect any services or create lambdas or API gateways or anything. You don't need to do anything like that. Webiny will create all those automatically for you and connect them in the proper way. Also, a core part of our framework is this API layer, and it's powered by Apollo Federation. It allows you to build microservices and then expose one schema to the public, which then other applications can consume. And it's a natural way that really fits like a glove on top of the serverless infrastructure. And then there's other bits. Like I mentioned, that routing, server-side rendering, access control rules, support for CI/CD, like all these things in a serverless world, they work a bit different than in your traditional application. And we had to engineer them both for those specific environments, but as well as for many hidden challenges and pitfalls that you might not think there are there unless you start actually building one application and scaling it out. Only then serverless kind of reveals some of its downsides. But using Webiny framework, you kind of don't worry about that. It just goes under the hood. The second aspect is our admin UI. Essentially, it's an admin UI, as the name says. You can see a preview of it here, and it's built with React components. Like there's a dialog, a button, there's about 30 or so components there, but you can use those same components and they come with a storybook attached to build your application inside our admin UI. Essentially, like, again, you focus on the business logic, not making a slider work, right? We have one that already works, so you don't need to worry about that. We have a list, we have a form, and many other plugins. But also this admin UI is all built with plugins. This dropdown is a plugin, this search bar is a plugin, this logo is a plugin. And all plugins in Webiny can be replaced, can be turned on or off, so you have a full control to customize it exactly to fit your need. And finally, well, there's a dark mode to it. So if this is a screenshot, but you can toggle the dark mode here, and suddenly you have a whole new interface in a way. The third aspect of Webiny are Webiny apps, right? And we have a couple of applications that come out of the box. First one is a page builder. It allows you to build serverless landing pages with a really easy to use drag and drop editor. You can see a preview here, but also the components that you drag and drop are not your static HTML snippets. They're actually React components. And with React components, it means that you can drag and drop business logic, and you can drag and drop a component that does API calls. You can really build powerful things with the page builder. And there's a lot of optimizations under the hood, from prefetching other pages to creating server-side rendered snapshots, from serving pages off a CDN instead of a Lambda function, and many other features there. Then we have a form builder, similar like page builder. You use it to drag and drop fields to build forms like contact us, sales generation, lead generation forms, and similar. And once you've built a form, then you can add that form in the page builder to your pages. And any submissions can be exported via CSV. There's also support for webhooks. Again, all these applications, they run off a serverless infrastructure, so they can handle really spiky traffic when you need it. Another app we have is a file manager. It allows you to both upload as well as search and edit files. And you can upload documents, but if you upload images, then we have dedicated Lambda functions that handle creation of thumbnails. There's also DDoS protection built in there. CDN is a part of it. As well as there's an image editor. If you edit an image, you can edit an image right there and there, from cropping, resizing, rotating, applying filters, and so on. But the beauty is, this file manager, if you upload hundreds of thousands of images or files, it works the same way as if you would have 10 files. That's the beauty of the underlying serverless infrastructure that is powering it. And our final application is our headless CMS, which is GraphQL based, and it comes with really powerful content modeling features. It has support for multiple environments. You can control who can access which environment via access tokens. It has multi-language support. Again, it integrates with things like the file manager for uploading files as part of your content. It has support for revisions, so you can have multiple versions of content, and many other bits. It's a really powerful headless CMS. And again, it's one that you will only pay for the underlying infrastructure when you're communicating with the headless CMS API, and when you're not, you don't pay anything. That's the beauty of serverless. So besides those three components, the fourth component is also one that's really important, and that is all about the documentation. So Webiny provides enough documentation to educate your team. In a way, it flattens the learning curve. Like our docs.webiny.com site, it has guides, tutorials, reference manuals, all about Webiny and underlying serverless infrastructure and how all things work together. And just pointing your team there, they can learn a lot about the serverless world and how to build serverless applications. Then we have video tutorials and deep dives into some of the more advanced Webiny topics like API development, app development, and so on. And finally, we have code examples on our site, which you can kind of download and use out of the box. So as you see, when we go back to those serverless challenges, Webiny is a deterministic system, so there's no unknowns there. Everything's documented, everything, you understand how it behaves, so it's much easier to bring a security fence around it and have full control on who can access what. But also, Webiny educates your staff, and it has multi-cloud built in, and also we provide ways to test and debug things out of the box, but you can also easily integrate things like Lumigo directly with Webiny. So we solve a lot of these challenges when it comes to adopting serverless and after adoption. But also, we eliminate this bit. There's no need for custom tooling with Webiny. You will find everything you need to build a website, an application, a GraphQL API, and a microservice in Webiny. So these are kind of the typical use cases you can use Webiny for, and they will all run on the top of a serverless infrastructure. And that's kind of like the rough overview of Webiny. As I said, like, we're an open source project. You can go on our GitHub, view the source code, download, and to get started, it's best to visit our website. If you want to give us a shout out, you can find us on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed this, and that was it from me. Cheers.